So a nice looking web here, a nice looking spider. She is subadult. She has a little bit of white still on the front of her abdomen, on her dorsal abdomen, and that'll go away. So she's subadult. She's probably a molt away from being fully adult. And this is an interesting thing with the web here. Nice looking web strands. If the camera is picking that up, she has a nice looking amount of web here. There's something interesting about it though is her hide. Back in here, you can see the sheet web coming out. Now, Latrodectus have what is called a peripheral hide. So it's a peripheral hide. So if we can imagine the hide of the spider as an eyeball, and then the web coming out of it as the vision of the eyeball, Latrodectus have a peripheral. So let's say here's the hide, and out of the hide are the main anchor strands coming this way, and then from those anchor strands is the scaffold and lattice work of the web. That's Latrodectus. They have a peripheral hide. There she's moving around. Now this is Latrodectus with the peripheral hide. Theridiidae or Theridiidae spiders all have different types of web structure. Latrodectus has the peripheral hide. I think a Theridian, and they have that sort of that viscid, that doily look to some of their webbing. And then you have Parastatota, which has a radial hide. And so in other words, they have a centrally located hide, and then the anchor strands come out radially, semi-radially, and then from that is the scaffold and lattice work. But Latrodectus has that peripheral hide, and that, that's from another nice web here. That is, just evolution as Latrodectus or the Theridiidae spiders, the tangleweb spiders, evolved away from the orb web millions of years ago. They took on that tangleweb behavior, and so all of the Theridiidae spiders have a little different structure to their webbing, and that's that. If we think architecturally, that form follows function, architectural term, or in spiders we can almost say function follows form and form follows function. So it's sort of a catch-22. What came first, the chicken or the egg, kind of a thing. So even with this web that looks vertical and chaotic, even with this web, that peripheral construction holds true. Now there's a male here. There's a male there in her web. This is June 5th, so this is the first run of breeding as all these males try to get to the females here in early June. But even in this chaos of all this webbing, there is a peripheral to the construction. Remember that analogy I used as the hide. I can see her hide back in there. That round funnel hide. Now imagine her hide as an eyeball. Again, the hide is the eyeball, and the web coming out of that is the vision of the eyeball. And so with Latrodectus, you have a hide, and then you have a couple main strands that come out of that hide, so she can feel when she's in that hide, she can feel her entire web. There's a couple strands that come out of it. They may come out straight, okay? They may come out straight, but the peripheral is all of the lattice work is built off of those strands, and therefore sets her hide peripheral from the web. Whereas again, like I say with like Parastatota, those strands come out radially or semi-radially, not fully radially, but semi-radially, and then the lattice work is built on all of those. And so that would mean they have a centrally located hide. But even in all of this chaos, if we really analyzed it, if we could look at all this web, or if you could see what I'm seeing through the camera, there's a sheet web coming down in that male's right at the bottom of that sheet web, you would see that it is peripheral, and that holds true with the majority of Latrodectus spiders. Look at these layers. This is beautiful stuff. So we have on top here, we have glacial sediment, so ice age, so maybe 12,000 years ago and before. And then underneath it, these are more ancient, and I would assume we're getting into the Eocene or whatever. But look at this, and we can see that there's a high concentration of maybe magnesium, limestone, calcium carbonate, blah blah blah, making this white milky look. That is impressive. Maybe we can get a closer look at that. Another web here and a little female in there. I'm not too sure if this camera, this is a GoPro, I'm not too sure if this camera can even see her. She was so small. Subadult, she has a little bit of white on her, and that will go away as she molts again. Look at this white. Isn't this impressive, these layers of sediment? I would assume this might even get back into the Mesozoic. As we get to the other side of the lake, down in this region, there is layers from the Mesozoic. So we're looking at the Cretaceous, some of the Jurassic period. And so let's go back 60 million years and before. This is just impressive though. It's so white. The perfect lines. And then the slope or the tilt as it's pushed out of the earth. This is June 5th, 2024. Now, I guess I should say thank you for joining me. If you're joining me again this summer as we map spiders, this is a location that we come back to once in a while, and I like to come back here to see what has changed, what Latrodectus have moved where, what they're doing. But I mapped this area several times. But this summer we're gonna do some new maps. We're gonna go some new places around Montana in the west. But I like to come back to these spots. It's a good start to this season and see what changes are present and what spiders are where. Look at this stuff. Well, this is high. This is about 30 feet to the top of that. We can see over here, these are all swallow holes along the sediments there. That is sort of like a loess layer. And so what is where the swallow holes are? So what is loess? Loess is a powdery, sandy, wind-blown or glaciated sediment. Okay, it's real powdery, it's real fine sediment. And that's why it's full of holes, because the swallows find it easy to burrow into it. And that's where you'll see, notice above that there's none. That's gravel. That's glacial sediments, glacial alluvial sediments from water flow and glacial movement over the eons. And then beneath it is that loess, and that's where the swallows make their holes. You can see the powders eroding and falling down. It's a powdery, sandy sort of substance. That's called loess. It's an amazing place, really. Now look at this sediment. This is just imagine the layers of this and the movement. Obviously, we can see the movement of the sediments, or the flow of the sediments, as they kind of overlap and twist and turn. I don't want to say this is loess. This is too sandy. Obviously, this is sandy, and it's quite buried, this layer. So it's almost, I want to say it's on its way to becoming sandstone. You know, it's still sandy. It's just extremely compact. And now that it's exposed, obviously it won't become sandstone. But maybe farther into the hillside, it's becoming sandstone. But isn't that something? Just look at the layers of that and how it shifts. And I want to say this is alluvial. Now, I'm not a geologist. I'm spitballing here. I don't know. But I want to say this is alluvial. Look at over here. Oh, man. Just look at that. Just look at that. It's just amazing to me that, you know, hundreds of thousands of years or whatever ago, water was moving here and this terrain was different. And whatever layer this is, there could have been a river here or something, and it's just moved this sediment. I find that fascinating. I'm geeking out a little bit right now, but, you know, I just find this amazing. That is beautiful in its history. But I want to say that's alluvial, so river flow, maybe, you know, rivers channel sediments built up in like a sandbar and ditched. But I don't really know. Now this, I spooked her. She went back in her hide. But up in there in the dark, that's her hide. That little hole. Okay, off to the side like that. And as we come out of the old burrow, we come this way. Her hide is in there like this. But if we look close, I don't know if the camera can see it, but we can see her sheet web. Maybe we can see it if I move the camera. But her sheet web and her main anchor strands coming out, this is a great example of peripheral hide. Her main anchor strands coming out of that hide in there, they're coming straight out of the hole. And here her lattice work is made on those strands, as is her sheet web. And then her hide is back there this way. That is a great example of the peripheral hide of Latrodectus. Now, obviously, this is a very small web compared to some of them here. My hand can cover most of this webbing. And some of these areas, some of these older mothers, the web is literally massive. There's a massive investment. But kind of neat. Now, this is Theridiidae. These are the tangle web comb-footed spiders, so tangle webs, okay? And the thought is that they evolved out from the orb webs. And the orb webs evolved from the grass funnel webs. Okay, those, you go out in your yard and you see all those little webs across your yard. So the thinking, I believe, is that orb webs came from those webs. And then Latrodecta or Theridiidae tangle webs came from orb webs. So Theridiidae being the new kid on the block, Latrodectus being the new kid on the block, evolutionary-wise.